Beep, beep, beep. Welcome to the court of the Edijester, and thank you very much for tuning in. Right, I'm a layperson in most of this. Most of us are. It's extraordinary that lay people like myself have got involved in this entire fiasco. And as we know, when it comes to the Pakistani Muslim grooming gangs, rape gangs, there is a call for an inquiry. And it's this today that I want to consider. So I've read the report that came out some years ago from the eminent professor, Professor J, Alexis J, who I think did an extraordinary job in putting together what is a very comprehensive report. But I have an issue with it. And I want to just run it by you and talk about what I'm seeing. Because I think that when we say we want another investigation, I'm not convinced that another investigation along the lines of that carried out by both Alexis J, well, not both, there was a number of people involved, Alexis J and Sir Malcolm Evans, Ivor Frank, Drusilla Sharpling, as you can see there, which was presented to Parliament and then was taken on by everybody. Yeah, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to do t'other. I think the problem I've got with it, and what I want to consider in what this may be the first of another of many of these particular videos, is I don't want another inquiry that does the same thing. We need a different type of inquiry altogether, and it's that I'm trying to get my head around. What exactly should the inquiry be looking for? What should the inquiry be focusing on when Alexis J has done such a grand job in bringing to light the situation regarding child sexual abuse in the UK? So I think, first of all, let's take a look at the recommendations that Professor J put forward based on her extensive work. It's an extensive document altogether. I mean, it's over 400 pages long. But a summary of the inquiry's recommendations may be a good place for us to go. So let's start with the first one, that was a recommendation that there'll be a single core data set. This is particularly interesting to me for one main reason, which I shall highlight here for you. But it's in the first of those bulleted points there, that this core data set that people can access should contain the characteristics of victims and alleged perpetrators of child sexual abuse, including age, sex, and ethnicity. I think that's a very important key element of this here, is that we should be recording sex and ethnicity, not gender. So that was recommendation one. Bear in mind, none of these recommendations have been taken on board as of yet by either the Labour Party or the Tory Party. And I'll be interested to see which ones are. But that's recommendation one, that there should be a single core data set that also looks at factors that make victims more vulnerable to child sexual abuse or exploitation, and the settings and context in which child sexual abuse and child sexual exploitation occur. Now, the second one down, very interesting. Factors that make victims more vulnerable to child sexual abuse or exploitation. Now, I think there's something interesting in that second statement, that second bulleted point there, about what should the shape of a new investigation, a new report look like, or whatever it turns out to be. I think it should be a police investigation, personally. I don't think we need another report. I think we need a UK-wide police investigation, using what I spoke about a couple of days ago, which is this malfeasance, or doing things wrong in public-facing roles. So that was the first of the recommendations that came. The second recommendation was that there should be a Child Protection Authority for England and a Child Protection Authority for Wales, which improve practice in child protection, provide advice and make recommendations to government in relation to child protection policy and reform to improve child protection, and inspect institutions and settings as it considers necessary and proportionate. You see, this is all very well and good, but do you remember what I did the other day about, if we're all playing a game, we're on the same board, you need to stand outside the board. The problem with this is, I think that's a possibly a needed thing. It may already exist in certain ways, but be perhaps a little bit disparate. What I'm saying is that the problem is above this. I hope that makes sense. It's above this. Therefore, if you establish this, you will establish it within the realms of the problem. That's what I'm seeing. And please do. I'm looking forward to having your feedback on this. But that's what I'm seeing. That's where the problem is actually so much larger. It's up here culturally, you see. whereas all of these recommendations are either political or legal or policy procedure. The problem is culture, and culture is above politics. So from my perspective, doing this now would be a bad idea because you'd be doing it on the same board game as the game that played out. Again, please do let me know. Recommendation 3 was for a cabinet minister for children. No, absolute waste of time. As in some cases we've seen, it isn't necessary if we get everything else right. I don't agree with that, but that's up. You could soon tell me if I'm wrong. Recommendation 4 is public awareness. Now, this is very important. Except, right? Let's just see what the recommendation says a minute. The program should. The inquiry recommends regular programs of activity to increase public awareness. Now, there is a lot of public awareness about this now, and certainly the dam's broken in regards to the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs. There's a lot of awareness, but there's a lot of lying going on as well, which is a problem. So the program should challenge myths and stereotypes about child sex abuse, make maximum use of different approaches, including but not limited to public information campaigns, the use of positive role models and creative media, such as television drama, and be supported by continuous evaluation to measure their impact. Isn't going to do any good at all if those things once again are done in the confines of a world where the philosophical and cultural underpinnings still exist. We end up then with a positive representation, for example, of some 16-year-old girl who wants to get her breasts ripped off. That's the problem, right? So the culture's up here. This is a brilliant inquiry for the time that the inquiry was needed. And yes, it's filled with great ideas. But it isn't what we need today. I think a criminal investigation would do it. But again, you tell me. Recommendation 5 was the inquiry recommends what they're calling pain compliance, right? The UK government prohibits the use of any technique that deliberately induces pain, previously referred to by the inquiry as pain compliance techniques, by withdrawing all policy permitting its use in custodial institutions in which children are detained. So this is about the correct treatment of children who are detained within establishments or arrested and that type of thing. Again, great, pain, right, fine. What about the ones that are being searched by men that are pretending to be women? It's not, it is a report, and it's a brilliant report. It's just not the report for now. The problem that we've got is this. Things are moving so fast culturally that our antiquated and archaic systems and procedures can't keep up, which is why the police need to be leveraged. This should be an investigation by the police, a serious investigation into what's happening with public servants, and they're the ones that should be being investigated, right? Because a few of these cases, believe me, will sharpen everybody's focus. So again, look, I mean, this is a very, very, very simple recommendation 5 here, and it's a powerful one, but it's no good in regards to what we're looking at today. I'm not dismissing it, just to so you know. And then recommendation 6, the Children Act. They want it amended. So I think, so what? Yeah, do it. Give direction to the purpose of determining a specific question. Prohibit a local authority from taking any act or proposed act which it would otherwise be entitled to take in exercising its parental responsibility for any child. So in other words, it's tightening up what public bodies need to do. And yes, that's something we should be looking at as well. Recommendation 7, registration of care staff in children's homes. I am absolutely gobsmacked that this doesn't already happen. But in fact, it probably does, but not in the way that the inquiry recommends. The inquiry recommends, as was stated in the interim report in April 2018, there should be an arrangement for the registration of staff working in care roles in children's homes, including secure children's homes. Registration should be with an independent body charged with setting and maintaining standards of training, conduct, and continuing professional development, and with the power to enforce these through fitness to practice procedures. So, in other words, we've got what we need to keep the criminals out. We've got what we need to identify people that are dangerous to children. This is very much like a care staff version of the Nursing and Midwifery Council, or one of those overarching bodies that looks at what profession. Unfortunately, they've all been captured by bloody nonsense culturally as well. So adding another one to the list on the premise that we're playing on the same board isn't going to make any difference. It isn't going to make any difference. Recommendation 8. Recommendation is to register staff in care roles in younger. Of course, we should be doing that as well. But again, You know, if you're looking at this professionalism training, it's no good when you've got the Royal College of Psychiatry, the Royal College of Biology, all these people that oversee professional ideas and professional behaviours are captured. So what will be the point? Recommendation 9. Greater use of the barred list. Now, this is interesting. The inquiry recommends that the UK government enables any person engaging an individual to work or volunteer with children on a frequent basis to check whether or not they have been barred by the Disclosing and Barring Service from working with children. I find this a very odd one because I think this already exists. But if it doesn't, it certainly should. Recommendation 10, improving compliance with the statutory duty to notify the Disclosure and Barring Service. They take steps to improve compliance by regulated activity providers with their statutory duty to refer concerns about the suitability of individuals to work with children to the Disclosure and Barring Service, including. Right, okay. We'll have to be really. I'm behind this, but we'll have to be really careful with it because if somebody just goes, can't stand her, can't stand him, they can cause a person all sorts of trouble in their life. So that's a difficult one. Recommendation 10, something for you to think about when you're looking at the report yourself. And it also should extend the disclosure regime to those working with children overseas. I've no idea how I would do that. I mean, maybe workable. Maybe. What do you think? I think it might be workable. I'm just worried about the size of the bureaucracy. This is what we have to remember. You're balancing something here, right? You're balancing something. That's the problem. We're balancing it. And not only that, if you're then going to put another bureaucracy in place under the existing culture, which is a problem, you're just going to build into that organisation the problem that we have with the culture. Don't listen to me. I'm a layperson. I don't know bugger all. If you think I'm wrong, damn well tell me. Right? Next, we have recommendation 12, pre-screening. Now, pre-screening, this is interesting. The inquiry recommends that the UK government make it mandatory for all regulated providers of search services and user-to-user services to pre-screen for known child or sex abuse material. Well, good luck with that. I'm afraid the cat's out of the bag. I think that, most people are united when it comes to removing this stuff, and I think most organisations are united when it comes to removing this stuff. But it really is a monumental undertaking to do so. And I think where possible, people are doing the best they can. Some aren't and need to be held to account. I don't want this. The problem with this is it'll become something else. I'm worried it'll become censorship again. You let me know, right? So all regulated providers pre-screen. I think they do this. There's lots of it's quite robust. You can't believe you can report. So I think they do. I'm not sure how you do that, and I'm not sure how you do it without ending end-to-end encryption. And I'm not comfortable with doing that. I don't know whether you would be. I'm certainly not. Imagine if you're a woman that lives in Afghanistan, you get access to a phone that's got end-to-end encryption and you can use it without having to worry. It's just, it's that sort of thing, isn't it? You're somebody that's in a workplace where they're treating people appallingly or something awful is going on, but you can't get end-to-end encryption. I think we're a loser with that one, but that's, again, you let me know. I think it's a technological issue. Not I wouldn't want to stop it all, I would, but it's a technological issue that we'll need looking at. And then recommendation 13 is mandatory reporting. Now, this is and always will be a contentious one, mandatory reporting. The inquiry recommends that the UK government and Welsh government introduce legislation which places certain individuals, mandated reporters, under a statutory duty to report child sex abuse where they receive a disclosure, etc. And this will be of anybody under the age of 18. It's mandatory reporting. Somebody's 17 years old. I don't know. Thoughtful therapist James S. is everybody else out there. I'll leave that one to you. I have a problem with mandatory anything, but that's because I'm an anti-authority. Ne'er-do-well. Mandatory reporting. You will report. I've got the feeling that may be baby out with the bathwater, because if you're a young person and they go, if you tell me, I'm going to have to tell somebody else, there's a possibility the young person won't tell you. And once kids get the idea that's what's going to happen, they'll shut up. It's a very, very difficult one, that. Very difficult. But again, you can let me know your thoughts. Let's take a look now at recommendation 14. Compliance with the Victims Code. The inquiry recommends, as originally stated, that the government commissions a joint inspection of compliance with the Victims Code in relation to how we treat victims and survivors. Absolutely. We should make sure that victims and survivors have got everything that they need, but it should be done in an isolationist manner away from all other legal considerations. I'll come back to that when I talk about what I think we should do with this new report, this new possible investigation. Then you have the limitation to remove a personal injury claim, 3 years. The removal of the 3-year limitation period for personal injury claims brought by victims and survivors of child sex. How is that a thing? How is that a thing? Right, so the removal of the 3-year limitation period for personal injury claims brought by victims and survivors. How can there be a 3-year limitation period on that? So you're abused by somebody in the church, by somebody in the mosque, by somebody in the school, by somebody in the NHS when you're a child. And there's a 3-year limitation period for bringing a personal injury claim against the individual that abused you. It's just insane. And they want express protection of the right to a fair trial, with the burden falling on defendants to show that a fair trial is not possible. Careful with that one. Innocent till proven guilty. Innocent till proven guilty. Again, we've got to be... This is knife's edge stuff, folks. You know, we're really, really knife's edge stuff. And then we have recommendation 16, specialist therapeutic support for child victims of sexual abuse. As far as I know, that already exists. Doesn't it? Doesn't it already exist? Or are we talking about one dedicated specifically, as it's mentioned here, to victims of child sexual abuse? If so, how will it be done? Who will manage it? How much will it cost? How big will it be? We're back to the same problem. We've got therapists who are lying to kids about nonsense like gender identity ideology. How can you possibly implement something like this when the therapeutic industry is in such a damn mess? It's a difficult one, isn't it? We are stuck here. Recommendation 17, access to records. Retention and access. Absolutely, records should be kept. Already, I think, mentioned in one of their other recommendations there, but it should certainly mean retentions of records and an engagement in understanding how those records will go forward to prevent further child sexual abuse. I think very good idea, access to records. And then this is the criminal injury compensation scheme, which is the scheme that is used to help people. The inquiry recommends that the government changes the criminal injuries compensation scheme to include other forms of child abuse, online facilitated sexual abuse, amend the rule on unspent convictions so that applicants with unspent convictions are not automatically excluded where offences are likely to be linked to the circumstances of their sexual abuse as a child. Now, for example, there was one young girl who was actually the one that was arrested. That would have meant she couldn't get any compensation. And increase the time limit for child sex abuse applications so that applicants have 7 years to apply from the date the offence was reported to the police, or at the age of 18, where the offence was reported whilst the victim was a child. In either circumstance, the claims officer has discretion to extend the time that remains. I agree. The Criminal Injuries Compensation Board is utterly pathetic. The amount paid is utterly pathetic. It comes from the public purse, but I'd rather we started paying more to them, people who are victims of crime, than we'd spend all our money on EDI, DIE, and other assorted cobblers. Honestly, I would. Then we have recommendation 19, the redress scheme. The inquiry recommends that the UK government establish a single redress scheme in England and Wales, taking into account devolved responsibilities. The detailed rules and funding for this redress scheme should reflect the following core elements. Yes. Where the institutions of the organ of the state have let these people down, there should be redress. There should really. You know, what happened to people in schools years and years ago? There should be redress. I agree. Again, you can tell me what you think. And then recommendation 20, the inquiry recommends, as originally stated in its Internet Investigation Report, that the UK government introduces legislation requiring providers of online service and social media. No, absolutely not in 100 years. And you know why. I've told you before, but I'll tell you again. It's a backdoor to digital ID. They're doing it with the kids now. No, absolutely not under any circumstances. Sorry. But that's it. Okay. So there you go. The 20 recommendations. All of which are valid, with the exception of the last one. All of which are valid. All of which need looking at. But with the current situation, with the current problems that we've got, will be absolutely tainted by the corrosive nature of the philosophical ideas that led us here. We don't need an independent inquiry. We need a criminal investigation. And that criminal investigation should be done under the auspices of misconduct in public office, which is a fully prosecutable crown court. Crown court. You can't do it in a magistrate's, which is a fully prosecutable crime, and it is just not being acted on. I think that's what we should do. Misconduct in public office. That's what we need to do. We need to mobilise a police force that are going to do that, and we'll start with the councils, like Manchester Council. Get a few of these people in jail. We'll soon stop this. In addition, we need, and if you will, a kind of body that's going to look at what was the philosophy that led to the acceptance of the Muslim Pakistani rape gangs. What was the philosophy that led to people keeping quiet? What is silencing people around lies, falsehoods, such as gender ideology, such as queer theory, such as critical race theory? What is the philosophy that makes people keep quiet? This is what we need to look at, because that's the cultural bit. If we eradicate that from our culture, then 19, not the 20th, then 19 of these recommendations could be put into place without the corrosive nature of woke built into them. But until we deal with that corrosive nature of woke, nothing of the hard work of Professor J and her colleagues would be of any use to anyone, because it will always be open to being broke by woke. It will always be open to being invaded by gender identity ideology or queer theory. Until we look at the philosophical reasoning and why people remain silent and why people were frightened to come forward and talk about the ridiculousness going on in schools and what they're teaching children, and why it was allowed to happen in the first place, because we did not define gender identity ideology, queer theory as a clear public health issue. Why has this happened? And until we clear up that cultural bit, I'm of the opinion it doesn't matter. You can inquire all you like, it'll make no difference. I think we mobilise the police, and that what the police should do is they should use the Misconduct in Public Office Act, and they should act based on full, clear public investigation of that particular crime. And that's just one. I'm sure you will know many others, and will let me know, as usual, in the Dubris. All right? So there's plenty of stuff for you to chew over. I'm still not sure where I am with it all, because it's so complicated. But at least something for you to have a look at and take on board. All right. So over to you. Do what you want to do. Do what you want to do. Go and have a look. See what you think. Let me know. Give me a comment. Come and join the Warrior Teachers. And I, good people, will see you later. Bye-bye.